It's happy hour. It's great to be back, right? Because we've done this for a full season, which was magnificent and so much fun. And now we're able to sort of come back together for season two. Thank you guys for the support that you have given to this, for helping us to grow to new platforms. We are now live on Clubhouse. We are live here on Facebook, and we are also broadcasting this to Instagram soon. So you guys can sort of check in with us everywhere. Hey, Fabric, how are you? It's so good to see you. I want to take time to sort of ask how you're doing and see where you are mentally today. I want to check in with you because we haven't checked in for a little while. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in our nation and bring a little levity to whatever we can in this moment, and also sort of have a little chit chat about how we're feeling. I want to remind us all how serious it is for us to be focused, really focused, and protect ourselves because COVID is still a real thing. And I want to talk about something that's really near and dear to me, because it's the anniversary of the day that my father left this world. As always, we open with a song. Take me to the King. I don't have much to bring. My heart is torn in pieces. It's my offering. Lay me at the throne. Leave me there alone to gaze upon his glory and offering this song. Take me to the King. I sing that because my cousin Sherelle sang that when my father died at his funeral. And as I take pause today to remember him and to remember the wonderful gift he was to me and to my life, to remember the parts of me that are him, I wanted to pause and offer that to you. It has been one hell of a year. I mean, one hell of a year. We have suffered through COVID. we have dealt with a collapsing of our government in a way that, and I'm not gonna, let me go back. The government didn't collapse. Okay, so let me rephrase. The government has not collapsed. We had an attempt at a collapsing of our government, which thank God didn't work. But we're bracing for tomorrow and for Sunday and for the days after as we lead up to an inauguration of Joseph A. Biden. That's an amazing place to be in, considering the road and the journey that we've been on. I want to offer my condolences to every last one of you who has dealt with COVID and the loss that it has brought to us. I want to impress upon you how important it is to not let your guard down, because it can feel really sort of damning, right? To be inside, like to be cooped up, to not really be out and about amongst our friends, to wear the masks that we've had to live our lives in. But this new COVID going around that we saw in England that is now here, this is a serious and real thing, and we need to be mindful and present and in this place as we deal with that too. I want to take time to talk about Kevin Parker, a Philadelphian who had a dream of opening a restaurant, who opened what we all know to be Miss Tootsie's, magnificent soul food, a place where community gathered, a place that we could come for private events. Kevin Parker left this earth today. And so I want to take a moment of silence to remember Kevin Parker, Miss Tootsie's Kevin Parker, which is located on South Street, for those of you who don't know, which is also in the Reading Terminal, which is also in 30th Street Station. These pieces of our culture, of our history. Kevin Parker suffered cancer, and it took him out of this earth during this time as he dealt with comorbidities of other sorts of things going on. Please reflect and remember him. And it's happy hour. It's happy hour. And so what we do is we come together and we get a drink. I'm going to ask you to go get your drink. I'm going to have Chateau Neuf de Pape. This is my jam. Chateau Neuf de Pape is a blend. This one is a 2018 bottle, and it is always rated one of the best wines. I serve this at all dinners in my home, Chateau Neuf de Pape. And I'm going to ask you to grab your bottle, whatever you're drinking, and we're going to toast. We're going to toast to Kevin. To Kevin Parker, for the life that you lived, for the hearts that you touched. Cheers to you. To everyone who is out there suffering with COVID, who is struggling to stay in the fight and alive. To all of the workers out there who tirelessly, day in and day out, even when we don't hear about them on the news, go to battle for us, the soldiers on the front line for COVID. Cheers. To all of you who have hung in, who have survived and thrived, who have formed new communities within, well, the ether. Cheers to you. And finally, to a failed coup, where people thought that they would march on our capital, threaten those who make and defend our laws, kill the Speaker of the House, kill the Vice President, to a failed coup, that they may never, ever happen again in this country. That we have a peaceful demonstration of our rights and our laws, our thoughts and our processes tomorrow. That we remember our forefathers and the protections that they offered us, but also in the lives which were lost both in our Revolutionary War and in our Civil War, that we might today stand in this representative democracy. Cheers. And to the President of the United States to be, Joseph Biden, cheers. Because the road ahead is one of unity. It's one of healing. It's one of reconciliation. And we have to get there. And that does not mean that there won't be accountability. So let's get that off our plate right now. Let's talk about it, right? That's what we do. Habits. Okay. So if you commit a crime, you should be punished for the crime and face the law. This is a very basic tenet. And I want us not to make light of the situation we're in, right? So a lot of people have been talking about the events of the summer and saying, why was there no community justice for the burnings of cities? Why was there no movement from the Senate or the House to somehow speak to the atrocities of the summer? Well, the first thing is, throughout the political season, which is what we were going through, many people spoke to the atrocities that were going on through the summer. And that is not to make light of what happened, right? People were angry and took to the streets because they saw people which looked like them dying, or they saw people which didn't look like them dying unjustly. Unfortunately, the FBI, CIA, and the exiting DOJ, in his report, said that about 70% of the violent, illegal, horrific activity which took place at the time of peaceful protesters marching for a better America, members of the KKK, the Proud Boys, groups which are domestic terrorist groups, 23, I believe, groups, were responsible for about 70% of the inciting of that violence. And I want to talk about the inciting of violence because it's really important that we talk about the inciting of violence because it is criminal under the law. That is not to excuse anyone who looted, who participated in violent acts, who marched on things, who blew things up. All that is absurd, and it is against the law, and you should be punished for breaking the law. To date, many people have been arrested for those events if they were caught on film. If we saw your face, the FBI has come for you, and you know who you are because your cell phone isn't working, and whenever you call someone, they have to accept charges for your call. You know what I'm saying? But I want to talk about the inciting of violence because it's again what we saw when those same 23 groups spread a disinformation campaign with the help of various media organizations. The current sitting president of the United States, whose own party, whose own vice president, whose own Justice Department chief, right, DOJ, said there is no major fraud that would have changed any result of any election. And I want to repeat that here today. There was no fraud which would have changed the result of any election. And I want to address, people said, yeah, but what about that lady? Remember that lady? That lady who was out there who was, she was getting dead people to vote. They caught her. They arrested her. She happened to have been a Republican, and she happened to have had dead people vote for Donald Trump. It was not a coup against the Democrats, or for the Democrats in that way. They found, I think, 15 cases of voter fraud. If those 15 cases anywhere would have changed the election, I would be all about us halting right now and saying, stop! We need to go back. But over 60-some courts looked at this issue. The United States governments have looked at this issue. The Federal Bureau of Investigations, the CIA, people in charge of counterterrorism have looked at this issue. Everyone across the aisle, except for a few, and I'm going to call them jackasses, has agreed that we had a fair and peaceful election. The transition is happening, and that America has elected a president in Joe Biden. And it's very important that for any healing that we're going to do, that we acknowledge where we stand today. I wanted to talk to you about that inciting, because those same 23 groups of horrific domestic terrorist-like people who believe that there is a superior race, who believe that this is not a home for immigrants, despite what Lady Liberty screams to us all around the world, who believe that violence is a way for them to be able to express themselves. That same group of 23 groups marched on our Capitol and, in a moment of insurrection, almost stopped us from carrying out our duty as a nation. That must never happen again. So I call on all of us to tap our neighbors and our friends on all sides of any aisle and say, pause. Pause. This nation will and must stand. That's all I got for you. This nation will and must stand. We must walk into this peacefully. We must voice our opinions with our mouths, not with our hands, not with a gun, not with zip ties, not by blowing things up or setting things on fire. We must reckon with who we are and where we are and have a conversation about how to get to a better place together. COVID-19 is a here and real thing. And there's a shot now available for you to take, which is a vaccine. There are several versions of vaccines which are on their way to market, and some of which you can take, and I am going to encourage you so to do. Why? Why, David? Don't we know that people haven't yet been able to really test these things on a vast amount of people to see what's going to happen to them? Don't we know that there are other things which are coming out which might be better? Here's what we know. What we know is that there are minimal side effects to the vaccine. What we know is that for most people, nothing has happened. And for some, mild symptoms for a day or two have been the result of their vaccination. What we know is that hundreds of thousands of Americans and people around the globe have died. So if we can take part in helping to reach herd immunity by being vaccinated, is that not part of the same civic duty that we are exercising by wearing a mask? Is that not part of the same agape type love that we're supposed to be showing one another daily as we struggle to heal as a nation and as a world? So I'm going to get a vaccine against COVID-19. as soon as it is available to me. And I would challenge you to get a vaccine against COVID-19 as soon as it is available to you, so that we can open our economy again, so that we can protect ourselves and our health, so that we can send our kids to school, so that we don't have to greet one another forever, covering our faces. I'm looking forward to being able to hug you again in person. I'm looking forward to being able to say, I love you, I miss you, I'll see you next week. I want to be able to have a drink at a bar with you, in person, not just on social media. I want to be able to tell you what I'm feeling and hear what you're feeling again. So I need us to do this together. If we have to shut this nation down for a month, that's what we have to do. If we have to get vaccinated so that we stop the spread of this disease, it's what we need to do. Because it's your life and my life and your parents' lives and your siblings and your neighbors and your friends, your cousins, and quite frankly, people who you don't even know, who you are affecting and infecting, unaware. Vaccinate. It's really simple. I want to touch on some levity, things that I found funny. Since he's leaving, I can roast him a little bit. Our dear president once stood on a podium and said, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. And yet somehow a statue of Abraham Lincoln was leaving the White House into a moving van. The White House has no comment. They don't actually know what happened to the statue. They're not really sure. But they filmed it, and it was all over the internet what happened to that statue. It was stolen, looted from the White House, grifted away. If that's not hilarious for you, this sort of juxtaposition of that, we should talk about this process of impeachment, right? What's it for? What's it worth? What is it going to do? It's just going to divide us more, right? I mean, it's just going to make things much worse if we just impeach this guy after he's left the office. Is it even like a thing? Is it legal? Yes, actually. As long as you start the process before he's left, it is legal. And some would argue that you can start the process to impeach someone no matter what, and there are precedents set for this. 2, it allows the ability for truth to come to light in the Senate and in the House in a way that we can hear as a public. Tapes, conversations, phone calls, people who were involved. And you say to me, they're never going to speak. These people went to jail. He pardoned them. They're not talking. Oh, contraire. You see, because when you are pardoned, I wish I had been on the legal team for President Trump. Actually, I take that. I really don't want to be on the legal team for President Trump. But if I were on the legal team for President Trump, what I would say to people is, do not pardon the criminals who were alongside you. Let them stay in jail, at least until you have finished with. Don't pardon them. You see, because when you're pardoned, you can no longer plead the Fifth if you're called about the crime for which you were pardoned, because the Fifth protects you from self-incrimination. You see, so if you were protected from self-incrimination, then you could say, I am not speaking about this. But since you are already pardoned and therefore cannot serve jail time for this particular crime, you now are forced to testify by the House or the Senate. That means that all of those people who are criminally involved in some way, shape, or form in any of this, I don't know, in insurrection in the Capitol, in money laundering, in the shifting of bills back and forth, all of those people are going to be called to the carpet in the Senate during an impeachment trial. And they're going to tell the truth, because if they don't, they'll be convicted for lying, and then they will go to jail for something new. They're not going to jail a second time for Trump. So I'm going to suggest that this is going to be a popcorn grabbing moment. And I'm going to also suggest that it has to happen for us to heal. Because like in any recovery of anything, the first step is hearing truth and acknowledging it. We have to hear the tapes. We have to see the documents. We need to hear those who are responsible for certain aspects of certain things live as a nation. And that needs to be etched into our minds. This last plea I'm going to make before we wrap up our happy hour for the night is that the media should also be held accountable for disinformation campaigns. There was a time when we relied on news sources to be standard bearers for truth, to have fact checkers. For journalists, to be journalists, they had to be honest. Otherwise, you were a writer, novelist, fanciful, entertainment person. You were not a journalist. And we need that level of professionalism to come back to the world. It's time to hold Breitbart accountable. It's time to hold Fox News, which has lost on many shows news rating, become entertainment television, accountable when there's false information. And ABC, when things are set askew, or CNN, or anyone. I tend to find truthful conversation often on the BBC without people's interjection about how they feel, which can greatly sway how you as the public feel. So when we talk about the responsibility that we as Americans have for inciting insurrection, we need to not just stop at the President of the United States, whose speech was insightful and horrific and un-American, who was unapologetic about that, who took many days to be able to say anything other than that. But we also need to look to those who've been inciting Americans for 4, 6, 8, 12 years. The media should be held accountable for any bits of disinformation that it spreads, so that when the DOJ say there is no evidence of fraud in this election, Fox News is going to have to adapt that statement too. With that, I say, don't do anything that I wouldn't do. But if you do, call me. Take me to the King. I don't have much to bring. My heart is torn in pieces. It's my offering. Lay me at the throne. Leave me there alone to gaze upon his glory and sing to you this song. Take me to the King.